day, grand honor, grand experience to everybody. This is Team Creative Way book discussion, and we just want to thank everybody who will listen. Uh, we got a lot to say. I think I can speak for everyone confidently to say that this book is so much. We have so much content in this book. We can spend hours on this book, but for your convenience, we want to condense it and try to just get through what we felt was meaningful for us. And so, without further ado, we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm your moderator. My name is Alvin Elkerson, Alvin Rashard Elkerson, and let's go on down.
I'm Madison. My name is Madison.
I'm Robinette. Hi.
I'm Meryl Hewitt.
Yeah, hi, I'm Yiga.
Well, it's good to finally see all of you guys. I know we've been working together for a few weeks now, so this is very nice to be able to actually speak.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing the people behind the poems because I'm reading your work. So now it's kind of cool seeing everyone and comparing it to what they write. It's cool. I like it.
Yes, it is. Zoom is awesome. We want to thank Zoom. Zoom is amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So now, you know what? Yeah, we don't have we don't have a lot of time. Let's just. Do y'all want to just jump right into it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we split this up in sections, and so the first section we're going to give the Zoom floor to Meryl. Meryl,
Hello. So we split them up into 13 sections because there are a lot of chapters in this book, but they're actually really short. But for my 13 chapters, which are the beginning 13, it really focused on that first, everyone is creative. So this whole idea that, hey, it's not a trait, everybody's born with it, creativity comes in different ways. And then it branched off into this idea of the stream of creativity, how to get onto this creativity wavelength that everybody is able to access, but maybe some struggle with accessing it. Maybe others are sensitive to it. And so it goes into how to tune into the stream. How do you even get there? Then how do you filter the stream? Because obviously this is a lot. Because it's a universal stream, and then different ways to tune into it. So nature, being around art, it goes into the subconscious stream. So I have a couple little things that I would love to talk about. So there's the idea of the vessel and the filter. It's my favorite chapter, and I was wondering what you guys thought. That we are a vessel and we collect almost like a cup of just ideas, and we have to filter them, and that's how we output art and ideas. I was wondering what you guys thought.
I thought that was phenomenal. A phenomenal metaphor. That's just. I mean, that was just on point. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that. Um, that was that was very intriguing to see us in that frame of thought. um, so yeah.
I agree. I really like this idea of us sort of interacting, the energy around us, interacting through us and with us, and how that sort of works in our favor in this sense of being a vessel to communicating and creating that energy into physical forms. So I think that's just a great way to sort of encapsulate how we transcend with what's around us and the universe.
Mm.
So I know that in the book, as we experience the book, we get a bunch of little stories. We get to really know what the author's, I don't know, his gist. We get to know he spent a lot of time in the music studio and he works with a lot of artists. And there's one story that really stuck with me, and I was wondering what you guys thought. And it's the story of that he needed to get his appendix out, and he went to a bookstore to think about it, found a book, and it was don't trust the doctor. And the idea of the universal clues to, hey, maybe you should think about this. Maybe, you should go this way, you should pick the right door. And I was wondering what you guys thought about it, because I think it's a really interesting idea.
I definitely believe the universe speaks to us. And if we're listening, we can hear it in many different ways. And so that was a very intriguing story. Um, and for him to still have his appendix, he listened, and so sometimes we do have to, kind of just trust the flow of what's happening, what's going on, and just just let the universe guide us. And so that's real.
So I guess my last question, because I know we're short on time. There's a point in this when it's talking about how to connect to the stream of consciousness. It talks about artists, doing their best work when they have a fever or when they've just woken up or they're about to go to sleep. Also, the idea of dream yoga. And I don't know, personally for me, like it's my final, I'm working on my thesis, and like this book really inspired me to different ways of maybe trying to tune in, which I wasn't open to. I've never been open to meditation. And I was wondering, from y'all's perspective, I mean, we're all very creative people. Did this book help you at all get to a place of, hey, maybe I should try this for my creative routine to access some new ideas?
Yeah, I definitely think just reading the book helped me a lot. Like the whole reading it every day, it just really helped me to get in more than motivated or anything like that. One, to trust more of my instincts as an artist and like the things I want to do either in routine or trying to get out of my creative routine, and just sort of every day reading on creativity, I think just genuinely made me more sensitive to myself and in wanting to do it, if that makes any sense. So I think it was sort of this like sense of its own meditation, just reading on it. And then I also in that remembered how much I actually love to read. So that was how this experience sort of with this book really helped me personally.
Yeah, I wanted. Oh,
No, you
please
go.
go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. I wanted to say that like I also felt that like the way that it was written really like played a role in how easy it was to absorb what he was saying. Like it's such a I feel like it's such a philosophical thing, like trying to explore the mind of an artist, where there's like a tons and tons of possibilities, but no like distinctive like right or wrong. So it was really interesting. And Meryl, I also got like, I guess the opposite to your chapter, I got tuning out. So I'm interested to see how like our thoughts on the different chapters contrast with each other.
That's such a good chapter.
I just felt when reading it, it like made me feel about like acceptance for the creative process. I feel like sometimes I'm always like down about myself on my creative process, and this kind of made me feel like it is okay. Like when I started talking about mine, then one of my chapters was self-doubt, and I feel like it made me feel like accept like it is okay to like overthink and everything like that. Yeah.
I felt the same way because when I was reading the book, I realized how negative I was when I thought about being creative in the creative process. So reading the book, it really took me out of like this binary like perspective that I had because for me, I wasn't born like inherently creative. I wasn't really pushed to be more on the creative side. So when I thought of myself as a creative person, I always thought I was very limited. But this book, especially my section, it it emphasized a lot about learning and unlearning and like sticking to rituals, but also doing stuff that's out of like your comfortability and like personal taste. So I liked how it was like it wasn't a tactile guide of how to be creative, but it was more of like a conceptual like deconstruction of the creative process. And yeah, it was like super beneficial for me because I think of creativity in a very narrow lens. and it kind of opened that up for me more.
And I'll just add, no, it definitely helped me. I mean, it definitely, I'll just say this, it helped just let it go, and just, just let the creativity just run through you and, don't be scared. And so, yeah, great questions. Great, great section, Meryl. All right. Anything else on this section?
No, I mean, I think that really covers this section. It's really interesting to hear everybody's perspective because for this section, that really was my experience, like with opening up to creativity. And I'm really excited to hear about the self-doubt section because that section was also so important to me.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So next we have Taylor. Zoom is yours.
Yeah. So I had the self-doubt section, and I felt like this was kind of just about the challenges of like the creative process, and that's kind of the word I would use for it. Like it's just like the struggles of getting to the actual like process of it. So for like the first chapter, it's always there, which was about the sun, but like really about the deeper meaning is trusting the process and about the unknown. With the sun, it's always uncertain how the weather will be, which is much like the creative process. And Ruben kind of explains that, and we have to stay for the whole journey or we will miss it. So it's basically just saying, like, you have to keep going. Like, you're going to have so many obstacles and everything, but it's just a part of the process. And I felt like it was such a short chapter. It was like barely a paragraph, but I was like, you know what, like it makes sense. You just have to keep going because a lot of times I even want to give up because I feel like I'm not the most creative, but it's just part of the journey. And then for the second chapter is the setting, which was probably one of my favorite chapters to read. Also, I believe that it agreed with the author said about how the environment is one of the key parts to your creativity. And I think much like anyone else, we don't do our best work when put in an uncomfortable and inspiring setting. And the output of everyone's attitude in the area comes as well. I know myself, like I want to be in a good area or surroundings when I want to be creative, and like in a bad area is not going to work. So I just felt like this chapter was a little bit longer, so I enjoyed like all like, oh, you want to be in the perfect setting and everything. So I just enjoyed that part of it as well. And then the third chapter, when we were picking parts to speak about, I was excited to talk about this chapter, so I chose this section, which is the self-doubt section. And it's a part of the creative process, and just because one feels uncertain and has fear of failure does not mean they're any less talented. Self-doubt can start at a young age if criticism is with them growing up. With understanding the roots of people, will be able to produce their best work. And I just felt like, as I said earlier, self-doubt was just part of the creative process. And I didn't really realize that until reading this book. Like, I just felt like it was just me. Like, I just had self-doubt, but I was like, wait, this is normal. Like, this is a part of the process. So I guess my question for you guys would be, do you believe self-doubt is a major part of the process as well? You guys.
I would say so. I would absolutely say so. And like you, uh, this helped me to understand that that's a normal thing. Um, to kind of normalize that. But I think that, just if you're real, if you're not a robot, right? You're going to feel the emotions of the everything. Of, hey, listen, this could be awesome. And then the flip side of that is that it could not be awesome, or it could not be created. I could be stuck on one thing. And so, self doubt, I think that it it allows us to know that this is real. And then, when we overcome that self doubt, it allows us to really understand that we have more strength than we may feel that we we don't have. If we just, like you said, just keep on, just keep going and follow the universe. Try to be as one with the universe as possible.
Yeah, I really agree with Alvin. Like, I literally put a sticky note in the section was like, you just have to remember this, because I feel like we sometimes as artists feel very alone, maybe. And because of that, we forget that other people go through the same struggle, like other artists. And so that section really helped me be like, oh, yeah, maybe my classmates also have a lot of self-doubt. Like maybe we're not just alone. And I think self-doubt is a pretty good thing, to a certain extent, because it brings up questions, and I think questions help you come up with like new branches of creativity and ideas.
Okay,
Awesome,
and
Earl.
to wrap it up, just so we have enough time, another chapter I wanted to talk about in my section was the tendency to overthink and overanalyze during the creative process, which just goes along with self-doubt. I feel like it's just another part of the creative process, and I just wanted to ask you guys, do you guys ever overthink or overanalyze? Like, is it part of your creative process? Is it a normal thing for you guys as well?
All the time. All the time overthinking. It just I can't help it. I try to actually what you said previously about finding a good area. I try to find places that could help me just get out of the mind and just into just feeling. Um, but yeah, it's tough not to overthink if if your feelings is into the moment, right? If and I know that kind of seems pretty ironic. I mean, you're feeling so much that now you're thinking about it, you're overthinking it. But I think that anytime that you're into something, you get your mind is just turning, and it happens for me.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely happens for me too. I think overthinking and sort of the self-doubt and the things we've been talking about show how much we care and that we actually we hold so much sort of pressure in ourselves to serve justice to these like creative works and these ideas and these creations that it's very easy like not to take it personal with yourself, like, oh, I need to do this like this. And when I don't, you overthink and X, Y, and Z. And I think it's just what I try to remind myself is sort of to go back to basics and to go back to where I started. Because a lot of the time when I overthink and I get anxiety over what I'm doing, I get so out of track. And sometimes that's helpful because you find new things and it sort of starts speaking to you instead of, I mean, you let it speak to you and sort of take you instead of you trying to control it. But many times I feel like there's this difference between a whisper, so like that universe thing where it's like it's taking you, it's guiding you, versus you yourself, your ego screaming at you and sort of trying to confuse you. So I feel like there's this balance where you need to learn to differentiate, and that's not easy at all. But I think that's something I try to remind myself at least.
Mm.
In my section, there was like the conclusion of like a chapter was um when the work has 5 mistakes, it might not yet be completed. When it has 8 mistakes, it might be. And I feel like that perfectly connects to this idea of like overthinking and thinking that everything has to be perfect and like having such a strict expectation on your work. I think sometimes it's good to just lean into the unexpected and into your mistakes because especially when especially with the creative process, it's so human, so that's something that I'm just trying to like understand more that when I create something and it's not perfect, it's on the way to being perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect right in that moment. The time will come, and even if I have to leave it alone and not look at it for a few days, its time will come and there's no need to like stress over imperfections.
Mm,
I,
very
I
beautiful.
personally overthink like crazy. I don't know whose chapter it is, but somebody has the chapter about like having distractions, and because I think that overthinking can lead to creativity, but I think it can also lead to destructiveness. Personally, I struggle with a lot of that, and so the idea of being able to distract yourself as a help really helped me kind of be like, it's okay to distract yourself. You're not avoiding it, you're not being lazy, you're just keeping yourself centered. Because overthinking, I think also with artists being so sensitive, is just abundant in the field.
Yeah, that's my chapter, and I was actually gonna end on that because I have that highlighted, and I like the sentence, it's distraction, it's not procrastination. And I find that like it's having to do so much with like my chapters that I read because it kind of just sums it up. And it's like, and it says like in service of the work, and it's so true. Like it's just another part of the creative process. So I thought that was really interesting, and I really liked that sentence. But yeah, I think summed it up for my chapters.
Awesome. Phenomenal job, Taylor. Anybody else? Anybody else has any other feedback for Taylor's section? Perfect. Perfect. All right. The next section is my section. And so I actually split this up in quotes. And so I'm going to try to get through. I'm just going to try to read the quotes. And then at the end, I'll give it back to our team to see exactly if you have any feedback for it. All right. So first chapter, habits. Quote I wrote down: limit your potential choices to free your creative imagination. If you can just if you can find a routine to get through your necessities, the most important things, the things that need to be taken care of in your day, then you can free up the rest of your day, or you can free up the rest of your time to be able to be as creative as possible. And just kind of go with the universe. And so that's a pretty cool thing that I thought. Seeds. We're searching for potential starting points when searching for potential starting points that with love and care can grow into something beautiful. So this is where you're looking for creative, you're looking for your creative process, and it's no pressure. Okay. Is the thing supposed to be on me, or how do you get that? How do I do that? Is all right. I'm just gonna go. All right. But yes, you're searching for your creative process, and however that happens, wherever it comes from, you just collecting seeds. You're not pressuring. You're not trying to force seeds to happen. You're actually just collecting them and seeing what you actually get. Experimentation, fueled by the initial hit of the excitement at discovering a starting point. We play with different combinations and possibilities to see if any of them reveal how the seed wants to develop. And so we have our seeds, we have our potential creative avenues, and we just start seeing what clicks, how it feels, what we're getting from the universe, maybe, this way works, maybe that way works. Again, not really pressuring the process, just kind of letting the process come to us. Just kind of just, hey, listen, if I like this, if I like how this is feeling, I'll go with it. If not, that's okay. Okay. So just limiting the expectations, maximizing the options that you can potentially have. All right. Try everything. Failure is the information you need to get where you are going. I thought that was huge. Because sometimes I won't start something because I don't know if the finished result will actually work, or I don't know if me starting will be something that will be meaningful. Or I don't know if I just don't know. And this chapter just helped to say, listen, look, just go for it, and you never know. Hey, listen, you may try something now, and it may not be for this. You may not finish this, right? But or it may not be something that you want to show to the world, but you may learn something to get to the next project or the next creative process or the next whatever, that now you know for sure, hey, listen, what this what you want to do, and you can feel more confident in it. And then I also wrote, give yourself permission to be wrong and experience the joy of being surprised. That was also big. Again, it's just lowering the pressure. If you can just lower the pressure and just allow yourself to just woosah and just let whatever is supposed to come out of you creatively come. And if you're wrong, nothing is wrong, because this entire process, as long as you're doing it, as long as you're in the process, as long as you're trying it, you're right. And how right, that doesn't matter. You're right. Just do it. Just go for it. And so, all right, crafting. Art may only exist and the artist may only evolve by completing the work. So we have our seeds, all right? We have our creative process. So we know we have an idea. Now we know, all right, hey, listen, look, all right, this is what I like. This is the direction that I want to go on. Now we got to make it happen. And so this just put the emphasis on, all right, you know what, you're excited, you're enthused, you're into what you're doing now. Now it's time to buckle down and finish the job and make sure finish the job is not there yet, but is now it's time to all right, let's start working. Let's get serious. Let's get serious. And because you weren't as serious in the previous steps, now it's almost like the universe is with you in a sense, like, all right, no, I'm ready to be serious now. I wasn't serious before, but now it's time to get serious, and I'm ready to get serious. But I also have enough nuggets. I also have, enough non-serious content that I don't feel scared about getting serious. I'm ready for the serious. And so that's what I felt. Momentum. When you're on a roll in the craft phase, work towards a full draft. If you reach a section that troubles you, instead of letting it go, instead of letting this block you, work around it. If you're holding a center puzzle piece in your hand and staring at the empty tabletop, it's difficult to see where it goes. But hey, listen, look, you're moving, you're crafting, and all right, hey, listen, this blocks you, but hey, listen, you may went on the other side, or you may went around it. At the end result, when you're now holding up the puzzle piece, instead of holding up one puzzle piece and having a blank space, multiple possibilities of putting that puzzle piece in, versus having maybe a few spots, it can be a lot more clearer where that puzzle piece goes. And so I felt momentum is key. Take advantage of your momentum. And if you get stuck on something, you're going back to it. You have more of your work done, that now if you go back to it, you may have a better idea of what to do where you were stuck at. So just take advantage of momentum. That's about half my point so far. Any questions or any feedback so far?
Yes, I have
Oh, yeah.
not feedback, just a thought.
Okay.
When you were talking about trying things, that chapter, and trying everything, I think something that I've always heard growing up is how you always start with a no, meaning like you always start not having the answer to something. Even if that means, for example, applying to a job or trying something new, if you don't try, you'll be in the same place that if you try and it fails, if that makes any sense. So there's not really any risk in trying these things when at the end of the day, if all goes wrong, like you'll just be in the same place you started. So why not just try? Because then you never know the trajectory of where those things can take you. But
Actually,
yeah.
that's strong. And not just one thing that I like to add, and thank you for mentioning that, was you won't be at the same place. You'll be at the same place in terms of you can't go any worse, right? But the knowledge that you gain, I mean, no one can take that away from you. And so you always, you gain something, but you don't go backwards, right? And
Exactly.
so that was awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Madison. Anybody else so far before I go to the the next conclusion? All right. So the next one, I have point of view. The goal of art isn't to attain perfection. The goal is to share who we are and how we see the world. A point is an idea intentionally expressed. A point of view is the perspective, conscious and unconscious, through which the work emerges. I thought that this was big because it kind of goes with, sometimes we can get scared to start because we want it to be perfect, or sometimes we can be scared to finish because we want it to be perfect, or sometimes we just want everything to be perfect. I mean, when you're doing something, and you're into it, you want the world to love it. You want the world to love you, right? But sometimes, actually, not sometimes, if you're living in art, if you're living in your creative process, it's not about what everyone else feels about what you're doing at that moment. It's about how you feel about it. If you love what you're doing, then at the end result of it, if people love it, then that's awesome. But if people don't love it or people don't understand it, you still can live with what you created because you love it. And so I thought that I thought that was huge. Break in the sameness. Before stepping away from the piece, it was worth finding a way to, before stepping away from a piece, it's worth finding a way to break the sameness and refresh your excitement in the work, as if engaging with it for the first time. Sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes we get stopped. We get blocked. Sometimes we get writer's block. We were on something that at first we were feeling, and then we got to a point where I don't know what happened. Well, hey, listen, let's try this chapter. You try it from another angles. Try to reimagine what you're doing, but in a different lens. Change your environment. Maybe change what you're wearing. Maybe change how you're thinking about it, and before you just give it up, because initially you were excited about it. Before you just throw it away. The universe sent you this for a reason. Your vessel, right? The universe sent this to you. Try to reestablish that excitement in somewhere fast. All right. Completion. With a beautiful volume of material crafted before us, the final form is refined to be released into the world. When is the work done? There is no formula or method for this method of finding this answer. It's your intuition. The work is done when you feel it is. One of the greatest rewards of making art is the ability to share it with the world. And so, completion, just finish it. If you can finish it, you can finish your project, you can finish your art. And again, don't worry about it being perfect. Just share it. And when do you know you're done? Like you are in control. You're the director, right? And so understand that, take empowerment from that, and be okay with being okay that you completed something. Be okay with sharing what I believe we were put on this universe to do, is to share what the messages and the influences and the atmosphere that the universe has that directed us to share. All right. I'm gonna keep on going. And then, all right, well, almost. I only got a few more. I know I got a little bit more minutes left to go. The abundant mindset. Okay. Just talked about ideas. A river of material flows through us when we share our words and our ideas. They are replenished. If we block the flow by holding them all inside, the river cannot run and new ideas are slow to appear. Ideas are always coming through, and the artist feels free to release them with faith that new ideas are going to come in. Don't keep it to yourself. Be that vessel. See, if the universe is sending you messages, share it with the world. Share it. All right. And if we have a constant flow of receiving and then giving, receiving, giving, receive, then our entire universe works in a harmonious flow of unity, of collective evolution, of collective beauty. And I'll leave it there. The experimenter and the finisher. I'll read this. Experimenters are partial to dreaming and play, finding it more difficult to complete and release their work. Finishers move quickly to the end point with immediate clarity. Each might find it helpful to borrow from the other. Enough said. Temporary rules. Much of the artistic process involves ignoring rules, letting go of rules, undermining rules, and rooting out rules that we didn't know we were following. There is also a place, right? So no pressure, right? Just let the creative process happen. And then there's also the other side of it of, hey, listen, look, there is also a place for imposing rules, for using rules as a tool to define a given project. If we just let everything just come as is and just be and just everything is unlimited, we may not ever finish. We may just be stuck in the creative process phase. Well, a rule is a way to structure our awareness, to keep us on track, to make sure we actually are doing what we can do and the best thing that we need to do to get our art, our greatness, our genius going. And last but not least, we have greatness. And I'll end with this. We create and we create. And so, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that because that's going to go. Measurement of greatness is subjective. Like art itself, there is no hard metric. We are performing for an audience of one. Greatness begets greatness. It's infectious. Now, I want to go back to we are performing for the audience of one. That's how it starts off. Goes back to what I was talking about in terms of, not what I was talking about, the book. Okay? It talks about what the book was talking about in terms of just share it. Just do your process. Do your part. I think we actually had a TED talk about that. If you just do your part and create what you were supposed to create, right? For your audience of you, and if people gravitate to it, then that's awesome. It was meant to be shared. It was the universe used you to share your greatness to inspire others. And if not, guess what? You still love it. You feel great about it. You can feel good that you created a piece of art, and then you can move on. You can take that and move on to the next. All right. And then never get stuck or never stop trying to share greatness. Never stop trying to share yourself because, hey, listen, look, we get inspired by each other's greatness. And so the more we create, the more we're just in that mode of just putting things together, sharing it with the world. Some things are going to be awesome. Some things people are not going to get, but that's okay. The more greatness that we're able to share, the more creative art we're able to share, the higher the probability of greatness that all of us will actually be able to receive. And if we can be inspired by greatness, if we can get as much greatness as possible, then we can also feel inspired to create our greatness. And I'll turn it to the floor. My apologies if I went a little bit long, but I just thought that this section was awesome. Any feedback from our team?
I think like from based off of what you were saying, it's incredible how he sort of like how Ruben is able to like link all these ideas together, yet still simultaneously draw on like his previous ideas. It all seems so interconnected, you know, like in everything you were saying, I was like, oh, that sort of reflects in something that I was reading as well in my section. I'm like, trying to find it, and just like everything is like so interconnected. So I think that's really amazing. It's sort of like really backed up his own point throughout the writing. Like it just solidified it in a sense, which I thought was really cool.
Awesome. Real. Thank you, Yiga. I felt very similar. Very similar. Anybody else? We're
Yeah,
good? All right.
quickly, I was gonna say I feel the same way. I was looking at like my notes and I'm like, I find so many things that I can connect to all the chapters. I'm like trying to find, but there was especially one chapter that was talking about, I'm just gonna say briefly, it was like when you're in the creative process and you know it's gonna be seen by other people, just write it for you and don't write it for the likes of others. And it was kind of talking about how like artists go into the creative process without thinking like, oh, this is going to be an anthem. This is going to be a classic. You know, you just go in and you just write what you feel and just let it speak for itself instead of tailoring it to other people. But yeah, your section was
Awesome.
great. It resonated with my entire section too.
Awesome. No, this book, I'm telling you, it was phenomenal. It really was phenomenal. Anybody else? Perfect. All right, Yiga, the Zoom is yours.
Okay, thank you. I think everything you were saying really leads up like really well into my section, which started with success and went on till great expectations. So I thought that was really interesting. I really liked my section. I felt like both the beginning and the end are so like intrinsically linked, like the idea of success whilst also like the pressure of having great expectations. Yeah, so that was cool. So I'm going to start with success. And like in this chapter, Rick Rubin sort of challenges the conventional notion of success, which emphasizes that like the like more public commercial success. Yeah, sorry. He emphasizes that the more public success is not like true success, and that success should not be defined by public perception, and instead it occurs within the privacy of your soul. So he suggests that in moments like when you complete a work of art and release it into the world, like without any external thoughts, any external opinions contradicting anything, like that's the moment of like success, you know, that quiet moment of like peace. He defines that as success. And what I found most interesting about this chapter was also how, like, in seeking external validation, the loyal audience that you can accrue can also begin to act as a prison of sorts, sort of training you and confining you to a specific like way of making and a specific like outcome, which can really affect the way that you continue with your creative process. Like it can hold you back from adapting, from changing, from trying new things. And in relation to this chapter, I also wanted to pose this question, like as students, like especially those of you that are taking like creatively inclined degrees, like do you feel that like in school, doing assignments, doing projects, do you feel that you often emphasize like this sort of like external validation over like personal fulfillment?
Sometimes. I wouldn't say school is necessarily where I do that. I think in school I feel way more like safe to be,
Oh.
to just like, I mean, I feel more safe in my talents, I guess, and in my voice, because I think it's just this shared space where like, I mean, because my degree is creative, so I sort of feel very
Mhm.
comfortable to be vulnerable and to not like look for people in interests more so than
Mhm.
like to grow as an artist. But I do think that I will second guess myself when I want to put that work out into the world. So, like, beyond my classroom, beyond my professors. And that's when I sort of struggle to, I don't want to say I struggle to stay true to my work. It's more so that doubt comes in with like, fuck. And then, sorry, I try to think of things to do that people will like or that people will think is cool or whatever, these thoughts of it being more performative come to mind. And I have to make a conscious effort to fight those off. And as we were saying, let it speak on its own, and whoever connects with it will, and whoever doesn't and hates it will too. I think that's what talks about like good work is that it has mixed opinions, people hate it or people love it, or I think the worst thing is indifference, but I even think that indifference has something to say. So I guess that's how I feel about it.
Thank you for
Wow, that's
sharing your
strong.
perspective. Yeah. I find it so interesting because I think I'm sort of the opposite in that sense. Like, I think I put a lot more pressure on myself when I am not aware of the audience, if that makes sense. So this sort of thing really like encapsulates the idea of like the internal critic, which is something that Ruben explored in the chapter Tuning Out, which was also in my section. So he sort of goes into like the origins of these voices in our heads and how they like can often originate from early childhood experiences, like our parents, our older family members, our mentors, our teachers, everybody. And it's sort of interesting how we sometimes internalize that judgment and sort of carry that on with us even in our creative practices. Yeah. So I think it's important to try to like learn how to detach as well from your internal voice sometimes to really like further yourself and to put yourself out there. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So now I'm gonna speak about connected detachment. So this was starting from page 225. So in this chapter, like I feel like everything is so interconnected. It's kind of hard for me to be able to speak about it in a linear way, as I feel I'm like jumping back and forth. But yeah, in connected detachment, Ruben discusses the importance of like detaching from your immediate experiences to open up new possibilities. He suggests considering detaching from the story of your life as it's happening. And so like this idea helps us to view like challenges and successes as temporary and interconnected. He wrote this quote that I really enjoyed. It was the outcome is not the outcome. Darkness is not an endpoint, nor is the daylight. They live in a continually unfolding, mutually dependent cycle. I think this sort of serves to remind us that the positive and negative experiences all contribute to our growth and our journey, and that it draws on this idea that like that we would not be able to perceive the good without the bad, which I think is like a really beautiful sentiment. There was also this chapter I wanted to speak about. It was non-competition. So it sort of emphasizes that art should be about personal expression rather than competition. So in this, he states that art is about the maker and its aim is to be an expression of who we are. So this makes competition absurd. And I really loved this quote as well as others that said that being made happy. So this was about like, sorry, my like notes are everywhere right now. So that quote was more about like competition in a negative sense, but he also dived into like how you can sort of be inspired by other people's work without yeah, please go on. Yeah, sorry,
No,
I'm gonna
I'm
correct
sorry,
myself.
so we actually have 5 minutes left. My apologies.
on
My
on
apologies
the whole.
on the whole thing. We have 5 minutes left.
Oh, okay,
I'm
okay,
so
okay,
sorry. Yes.
okay. We can scooch on. Yes, we
Okay.
can. Yeah,
Giga, that was amazing. No, that was amazing. Literally, that was amazing. So sorry. So sorry for our
you
listeners.
guys.
We had to cut Giga off, but Awesome. Robinette, do your thing.
Yeah, so I'm just to talk about one chapter. It was called Surrounding the Lightning Bolt, and like this whole book is like full of metaphors, but especially in my chapter, lightning bolt was like I feel like I saw it everywhere, or everything just like was directly a lightning bolt. So this chapter kind of explores the nature of artistic expression and the importance of like sustained effort. And Ruben is talking about how some artists chase this thrill of the lightning bolt moments when when they're doing something creative, when they're in the creative process, they're always chasing this lightning bolt effect.
Mhm.
But Ruben kind of recommends or pushes artists to have a more constructive strategy to focus on, and says that these moments are always fleeting and that inspiration is always fleeting, and we should like expand our sense of possibility, and instead of focusing on the lightning bolt moment, you should focus on the before and the after. And Ruben was kind of like talking about how not every inspired idea will result in like this grand, great art. Sometimes things, well, sometimes art would compensate effort. And yeah, it kind of just like concludes with like, do what you can with what you have, nothing more is needed. So I just wanted to ask you guys, are you the creative that's leaning more on like when you're writing, let's just say for poetry for this class, are you the type that writes more about lightning bolt moments, or do you write more about like casualities and things that you experience on the daily basis? Because I'm kind of both, but I gravitate more towards lightning bolt. And this like made me think maybe I should just write about like the clock on my table that I always ignore. So yeah, like what are you guys? Are you more lightning bolt or like little things you think you write about?
Personally, I write a lot about lightning bolts. I guess this is bad to say because like I feel like the book is a lot about like slowing down and exploring the world around, but I'm kind of bored by this small normal things, which sounds horrible. But I like my main fascination in the world is taboos and things that aren't really supposed to be like the things that you pay attention to or talk about. And I really just love like that, I don't know, that quick lightning bolt kind of shocking brightness. But I think the book will definitely, if you're into lightning bolts, like I think the book itself makes you slow down a minute. Like I was tying my shoes recently and I was like, oh my God, that whole chapter about how to tie your shoes. And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, this is weird.
Uh, and I'm real quick. I'm lightning bolt, but maybe we can make a lightning bolt out of just your basic clock. And on that note,
Yeah. We have like
anybody
2 minutes
else?
left.
Okay,
Madison,
Madison,
like
do your thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Just to, I think the biggest message in my section is the art and the importance of detaching. So we attach ourselves to everything. A specific idea maybe, or the result of something, or to our success, or what we wanted to say. And all of these factors that we cling on to, and oftentimes by clinging onto them, we sort of create the opposite energy. So instead of making it flow, we try to control everything, and that sort of kills creativity, kills the result of. So my section just really talks a lot about letting things go and letting them be on themselves and to speak and exist on their own, and using yourself as the vessel. And it also talks a lot about how the like thing about being an artist in this life is that then you sort of not carry, sorry, but you sort of have this responsibility to share and to share your vulnerability and to share what you're learning from all these things in as being the creator. But it's about, existing and being in flow with the, but once that energy is gone, sometimes it just needs a break, and other times that energy just doesn't exist in that project anymore. So it's important to know when to let go and start something new. And then like you know how when to surrender to that and when to actually, it's again the flow of the universe. The energy of the project itself will tell you when it should be worked on, when it shouldn't, and when you should let it go. So yeah.
That was beautiful, Madison.
Oh no, I was gonna say that the timer went out, but the meeting is still going, so I think we can just keep the timer says 0, but the meeting's still going, so
Okay.
you can
I have a
Okay.
quote that I think could, let me just find it because now I lost it. If someone wants to, sorry, I have to look for it. If someone wants to speak while I look for it.
Oh, okay,
You got
okay. I can
you get the
speak.
view.
Like in terms of the idea of detachment and like sort of like connecting with the universe in a sense, like that was also something that I saw a lot throughout my section. Especially there was this chapter about self-awareness in which like Ruben defines it as the ability to tune into what we think, how we feel, and how much we feel without interference. And how like in that sense self-awareness is like transcendent, and it's like an abandonment of ego and letting go. I think that also is a practice of detachment in itself, which I think plays a big role in our creative process. And he also like he emphasizes a lot like the importance of finding the balance between self-awareness and creative expression. And he like again like this idea of like the universe and everything, he
Yeah.
sort of speaks to it as if like we as artists are constantly yearning to get closer to the universe by getting closer to ourselves. And I thought that was really beautiful. It's like in practicing this sense of like detachment, you're sort of also forming a like intrinsic connection,
I love
which was
that.
really cool.
Yeah, that's super well said too.
Agreed.
I think that there is a lot of parts when it talks about the universe, and he goes in one chapter, he's like, well, if you want to call it spiritual, you can call it spiritual. If you want to call it magic, you can call it magic. And I love that because I think some people are sensitive to what it's called, and maybe they, I don't know, like obviously certain people believe in something, certain people don't believe in anything, but he makes it so that this is universal and we're all connected to this.
Yeah. I found the quote. So it says, art goes beyond the language, beyond lives. It's a universal way to send messages between each other and through time. So what I found so impactful about that is, again, going back to this idea of the ego and how that sort of intervenes a lot. I think in one of my chapters, it talks about cooperation and the importance of knowing how to set the ego aside when cooperating. Because a lot of the times, I think as it's very easy for us to feel like we own this idea. And the chapter talks about this. When we have ideas or when we're artists, we feel entitled to them. We feel entitled sort of to the creation. Not all of the time, of course, I'm generalizing, but it talks about this sense of letting go of I own it because it came to me, when I think these ideas flow many times between us. And what's amazing about art is how it connects not only the creator, but the audience and the universe to it. So it's about how the chapter of cooperation talks a lot about how we have to strive to making the work as great as it can be, even if it's not necessarily ours, and letting go of that ego because there's a important message to say with it, and we need to remind ourselves that we are not God, and we are not here to sort of determine what people have to understand or controlling, like, I'm the creator of it, so it's my message, and having that ego so clinged to it because it's sort of it's counterintuitive to the whole thing of being an artist and creating art, like it's more of a service thing more than it will ever be like something inherently personal and egotistical. So yeah.
I thought that was pretty strong. That was definitely pretty strong, Madison. Uh, and just to piggyback off of that, I think that if once we let go of the ego, and we can evolve from the ego. Um, you need an ego. Hey, listen, to understand. Hey, listen, know that you can do something. All right, now once you know that you can be creative, now by letting go of the ego, it lessens the pressure of you having to put out, a masterpiece. Sometimes, you just want to just go. You just want to have fun. You just want to just, be that vessel. And yeah, I mean, if we can let go of the ego, we can open up the we can open up our door for
Mhm.
more ideas to come in, for more things to just flow throughout us, because we didn't create ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
so we don't have to have that pressure of creating everything. We can
Mhm.
create what comes to us and know that it came to us, not we just snapped our fingers and abracadam, like Meryl said, like magic. It just
Mhm.
appeared. And so I thought that was wrong.
Could I briefly expand on something too?
Absolutely.
Madison, when you were speaking about the ego and the ownership of ideas, it made me think of like in oh god, Apocrypha, sorry, page 247. He sort of talks about this idea of artists being unreliable narrators, which I thought was so interesting. And in that, he stated that like we may think that we know what a piece means, yet over time the interpretation may change. The creator stops being the creator once they finish their work. They then become the viewer, and then the viewer can bring as much of their own meaning to a piece as the creator. So I think this
Well,
really sums up like a really beautiful relationship between like art and the artist and how it can evolve, and sort of how like everyone's perception of the art sort of changes its meaning, you know?
Definitely. I think something else that was in one of my chapters was how everything we've we've talked about this, about how everything's connected and stuff, but there it mentions math and just nature in general, right? So how we sort of have this perception of the aesthetic of beauty because of nature, and we breathe and live, and cycles come in circles. So we live, I mean, we're born, we live, we die, and that's sort of the cycle of things. So what you were talking about, I think, um, sorry, I lost my train of thought briefly, but I think it's just really important to sort of know how things connect and work in circles, and everything that you give gives in return, and sort of that just goes on. So with art and with your creation, it might feel like it started with you, but it didn't really. You just sort of messengered it, and then that continued and continued and continued until that essentially what we create in this world is what we live behind. It's our legacy, right? And it doesn't really so much become our legacy, more so than like a piece of human existence that just continued on creating and creating and creating, and that comes in with like the meaning of things and being a viewer. So the way we view things now versus how a generation of people did 500 years ago is different, but it sort of adds on to that message that the initial artist, sort of grabbed and decided to
Mhm.
create.
yeah. Anybody else? That was awesome. That was awesome. Anybody else have any feedback? All right. On that note, I'm glad that we actually got this extra time. I'm glad we didn't just get cut off. Um, Literally, this book was amazing. Um, and I we want to thank we want to thank Rick Rubin for creating the Creative Act. We all had a phenomenal time reading it, discussing it, and even this process was amazing. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts and your sections and just what you felt about the book overall. And thank you all for listening. Um, if anybody doesn't have any final thoughts, we can.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Have a
you
great
for
day.
Expats watching this. It's a great book, and you guys should definitely get it and read it.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay.